Jake Paul has blossomed into a formidable force in the boxing ring. From his days growing up in Ohio with his brother Logan to his current gig as a professional boxer in the cruiser division, Jake's climb to stardom has been a one-of-a-kind ride. The Paul brothers first started recording themselves at a young age. They would post their videos to a social media site called Vine. Jake had amassed millions of followers and billions of plays in just a short time. It's pretty miraculous for such a young kid to be able to get such a massive number of followers. Recently, Jake tried to entice Conor McGregor to get inside the boxing ring with him, but the Irishman failed to take the bait, mostly because of the broken leg, which required extensive rehab. Conor may also be a little reluctant to fight a budding social media star. Jake started his own YouTube channel on May 15, 2014. He would perform a variety of pranks and stunts. It was a bunch of ludicrous nonsense. But other kids couldn't get enough of his jokes and character. Jake also showcased his musical skills on his site. He was a hip-hop singer, but trust us when we say the music is not as impressive as his boxing skills. In 2015, he starred in a Disney show called Bizaardvark. Things came to a halt when production heard about the complaints by many of Paul's neighbors. His pranks and parties were becoming a public nuisance, and the police were routinely called to the neighborhood. It was around this time that Jake started focusing on his music and some other business adventures he had going. He was doing quite well for himself, but he had bigger aspirations to achieve, which he did. The problem child began his fighting career on August 25, 2018. Jake and his brother Logan first headlined a match between British YouTuber KSI and his brother Deji. The fight went down in England, hosted at the Manchester Arena, and it sold over 1 million pay-per-views. The fight began with Jake as the aggressor, but his nose was leaking by the end of round 1. The bloody nose didn't seem to bother him much as he went on to earn a TKO in the 5th round. Once Jake got a taste for the boxing ring, he was hooked and turned professional at the age of 23 after only one amateur fight. His first pro fight was set to go down in Miami, squaring off against Gibb. The date was January 30th, 2020, and it only took Paul 2 minutes and 18 seconds before the ref had to call the fight. Paul had received another technical knockout. Next up for Jake was an ex-NBA player, Nate Robinson. Nate was making his professional debut in this match, which took place on November 28, 2020. The outcome was pretty similar to his first fight. Paul wound up with a knockout in the 2nd round as he blasted Nate with some ferocious strikes. The YouTuber turned boxer has now started his boxing journey 2 for 2 with 2 wins, both ending via knockouts. The problem child was gaining confidence, and it was around this time when the McGregor comments started flying. It was December 14th, 2020. Jake posted a rather explicit message aimed directly at McGregor. With an Irish flag draped over his back and smoking a cigar, Paul had a nasty message for Notorious. He claims his team offered the Irishman $50 million to fight him. Unfortunately for Jake, the video message fell on deaf ears. McGregor dissed any talk about fighting Jake. He called the ex-YouTuber a nobody and made fun of the amount of pay-per-views he sold. Jake Paul then had a proposition for Dana White. If he can have a fight with McGregor and wins, Dana has to agree to Paul's UFC fighter pay, as well as his healthcare proposals for the future of each fighter. If he loses, however, Paul will pay his entire purse and split it between every UFC fighter that makes under $50K. Not only that, he will never mention the UFC again. Dana White responded by calling Jake a cheater and labeling him a steroid user. He mentioned that he can't sell pay-per-views and suggested he focus on his own brand instead of attacking the UFC. The following year, in 2021, he was scheduled to box former wrestler Ben Askren. There's not much to really talk about in this one. Paul was able to get a TKO fairly easily in round 1. Askren looked slow and out of shape. On August 29, 2021, Jake Paul squared off against Tyron Woodley. Woodley was a former UFC welterweight champion. He successfully defended his title 4 times. In this match, things didn't go as planned for Woodley. Tyron was making his pro boxing debut and his inexperience showed. Paul wound up with the victory in a split decision. Both men thought they did enough to earn the victory, so something had to give. In their second go-around, Woodley got knocked out in the 6th round. It was an absolutely monstrous right hook, one that could be felt for miles. Anderson Silva was next. The former UFC middleweight champion fought Jake on October 29, 2022. This was an absolutely crazy fight. Jake Paul was only 25 years old and Anderson Silva was nearly twice his age. Just an amazing undertaking for a 47-year-old man. The two combatants stood toe-to-toe for 8 solid rounds. In the final round, the intensity picked up, both sides were giving it everything they had. Paul caught the Spider with a right hook and knocked him down. It was the exclamation point as Paul went on to win in a unanimous decision. On February 26, 2023, he was ready to duel Tommy Fury in Saudi Arabia. Fury came into this fight with his confidence sky high. He claimed there was no way Jake could beat him. Well, once the open bell rang, Jake Paul looked like a seasoned pro. One would never have been able to guess who grew up as a social media star and which one fought their way to the top. The two gladiators ended up going the distance. Jake Paul was handed his first loss by Tommy Fury in a split decision, moving his overall professional fight record to 6-1. 3 years into his boxing endeavor, Paul has proven he knows how to handle himself. Nate Diaz is lined up next for a highly anticipated fight on August 5, 2023. This is shaping up to be a colossal event, but it's still not the ultimate battle Jake is seeking. He wants McGregor. McGregor is a man who needs no build-up. He's been at the top of the MMA circuit for many years, with a professional record of 22 wins and 6 losses. Conor McGregor recently said Nate Diaz would slap the head off of Jake Paul. Jake fired back the next day by saying he is a better boxer. He will do to Nate what Conor couldn't do, get a knockout. He goes on to say Conor is not his own boss and will hide behind UFC president Dana White. The ongoing feud between Jake Paul, Dana White, and Conor McGregor seems to grow thicker every week. It seems the real reason Jake Paul wants to fight Conor McGregor is to give him the chance to show the world what he can do inside the ring. On center stage, not only does he want the notoriety, the fame, he wants the money, and the bragging rights of beating some of the best fighters in the world. Jake Paul also has some amazing charitable contributions that are definitely worth mentioning. He started a children's charity to help kids fight back against bullies. He also vouches for better wages for his fellow fighters. It doesn't seem like Jake Paul is going to stop with the public remarks and social bashings of Conor and Dana until he gets what he wants. A shot to fight in the UFC, a shot to fight Conor McGregor. The ratings for that event would be through the roof. Is the risk of Dana's prized UFC fighter getting publicly humiliated inside a boxing ring too great? It would certainly be a fight well worth the price of admission.